Right, we're back again with part two of Christopher Hitchens' quotes. Very interesting stuff. Um, Religion is man-made. Even the men who made it cannot agree on what their prophets or redeemers or gurus actually did or said. So here he is talking about um, even the religions can't agree, and there's warfare over what different prophets believed and what my prophet said and your prophet didn't, and um, so this is a huge mess, and he's pointing to that religion, especially when religions conflict, like Catholicism versus Protestantism, or Islam versus you name it. It is very dangerous to be warring over irrational, because there's no foundation for reason. Warring over the irrational is a very dangerous step. Our belief is not a belief. Our principles are not faith. We do not rely solely upon science and reason because these are necessary rather than sufficient factors, but we distrust anything that contradicts science or outrages reason. We may differ on things, but what we respect is free inquiry, open-mindedness, and the pursuit of ideas for their own sake. Free inquiry is very important, and open-mindedness, which I think if Christopher was willing to listen to any argument that had compassion and reason, and that he was only, when you look at his speeches closely, he was only really mean to the people that were most of the time. I did see a video where he picked on this 80-year-old man who believed in Christianity to make a point with the crowd. He was grandstanding. So he did, and he had a little problem with alcoholism as well, but that might have been the alcohol talking. But for the most part, his intellect is incredibly sharp intellect, absolutely. So I guess what was the original point? Um, um, if religious instruction were not allowed until the child had attained the age of reason, we would be living in a quite different world. So again, reason, compassion, that kind of thing. I try to deny myself any illusions or delusions. I think that this perhaps entitles me to try and deny the same to others, at least as long as they refuse to keep their fantasies to themselves. And just to finish my point on, that in speeches he would, once in a while, he would be a little bit terse to people who didn't agree with him, but for the most part he was willing to listen to any reasoned argument that had compassion in it. And he would say why he didn't agree, respectfully, most of the time. Faith is the surrender of the mind. It's the surrender of reason. It's the surrender of the only thing that makes us different from other mammals. So there's that sacredness of the human mind that that Sam Keen talks about, that we can't lose that sense of sacredness. It's our need to believe, to surrender our skepticism and our reason, our yearning to discard that and put on all our trust and faith in something or someone. That is the sinister thing to me. Of all the supposed virtues, faith must be the most overrated. So a lot of things covered in that. I would respectfully disagree with that. I think faith is important, and hope, and we have one life, and hoping for the best for others, hoping the best for love and reason and compassion, and we can do that in a humanistic kind of way. We can hope for the future. We can hope for our children and grandchildren. All the supposed virtues of faith must be the most overrated. He's just talking about putting all our eggs in one basket for a celestial mother or father. He is talking about surrendering our reason, which is different than, I think we can still have reason and have faith. Excuse me. We can have reason and we can have faith at the same time. That's the tightrope that should be talked about here for the future. I think Christopher did get a little overboard when talking about All faith is silly. Hope is silly. When you start getting to that point that hope is silly, I start disagreeing with him pretty strongly. Name me an ethical statement made or an action performed by a believer that could not have been made or performed by a non-believer. This was his continual point in his speeches, where he would say that he has asked this question and challenged somebody to this and never been refuted. Perhaps that's where Sam Harris got the idea to make this challenge. And Sam Harris's challenge is to have somebody explain to him that ethics and morality cannot be explained scientifically. And he has not had anybody bring a good argument to that yet. So that ethics and well-being and morality, what Harris calls the moral landscape, can be described as an objective phenomenon. That there are moral ways of living that are better than other ways of living, and we can study that in terms of, what are the qualities of well-being and how can they be increased. And so far, I guess I tried to write an essay against that, and I have not been successful yet. So anyway, get off the point there a little bit, but I think Sam may have gotten his idea from Christopher about that, wanting to make this challenge of if somebody can prove me wrong, kind of a dramatic way to draw the line in the sand, I guess, right? We got to get through these quotes here before I go to 10 minutes, okay? Beware the irrational, however seductive. Shun the transcendent, and all who invite you to subordinate or annihilate yourself. Distrust compassion, prefer dignity for yourself and others. Don't be afraid to be thought of as arrogant or selfish. Picture all experts as they were mammals. Never be a spectator of unfairness or stupidity. Seek out argument and disputation for their own sake. The grave will supply plenty of time for silence. Suspect your own motives and all excuses. Do not live for others any more than you would expect others to live for you. That's very powerful. And I guess this, even a father may tell a son that he wants his son to be as confident and assertive and compassionate as possible. And a lot of these ideas would be appropriate in a father-son talk, I think. Don't ever subordinate yourself or compromise yourself. Don't listen to the naysayers. Distrust people who are saying they are compassionate. Always reason it out for yourself first. Don't be afraid to be thought of as arrogant or selfish by some, because some will never understand you. Picture all experts as if they were mammals. Never be a spectator of unfairness or stupidity. That's a really interesting point. Don't be a spectator, and don't see this stupidity go on and just let it go on. Just have your say. Jump into the conversation. Have your say. Seek out argument and disputation for their own sake. And he says the grave will supply plenty of time for silence. And even the most interesting thing is the last part, is suspect your own motives. And I thought Christopher was this way. He would constantly analyze and reanalyze his own thought patterns about things, and a very sophisticated mind. Sophisticated in the sense that it was always analyzing for logical value what he was taking in and how he perceived it. So he wasn't afraid to change his mind on things, as he did politically late in his life, turning more right-wing, and very interesting to see it happen. So R.I.P. Chris Hitchens. Some great. These are just some of the quotes, and there are literally thousands online, thousands of Chris Hitchens quotes online. But I like Chris because he wasn't afraid to speak out for what he believed in, and anybody who is a true friend, a true supporter, should listen to people and um, their thoughts. And he was a good example of not being afraid to just trounce out there on stage and trudge out there on stage and show people what his opinions were. He wasn't ashamed of his own opinion. He was not. He wouldn't apologize for believing what he did. Perhaps he was a little bit over the top sometimes with being a little coarse, but he wasn't afraid to assertively say this is the way it is, and this is how I think of it. These are the logical arguments that I have developed here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and feel free to challenge me if you have a good challenge. Feel free to do that, because he was smart enough to know that even his own arguments were vulnerable to a logical response or clarification or rebuttal. Rebuttal is a better term there. So, all right. So there's some Chris Hitchens quotes and comments. Welcome. Trolls not welcome, but comments welcome. Thank you.